r/atheism. Chingaquadito98 says, liberals need seriously to get well organized in order to avoid the U.S. becoming a theocracy. I don't live in the US, but I have family over there. One of them is a trans guy, and seeing what's happening, and I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale lately, and I don't like it. The right wing tend to organize quite well to get what they want, and sometimes liberals underestimate them. Don't do it. Stay vigilant for your rights. They've already overturned Roe v. Wade, and if people let them, they will strip away all civil rights from you. You need to unite in order to stop these maniacs. Don't underestimate them. I write this to encourage you to stay sharp. Sorry for my poor English, is not my mother language. Shout out mate says, not just liberals, moderates and independents too. Tiliaf Pontus says, moderates and independents are just embarrassed conservatives. Dr. Jack Wigan says, I think some are. Some moderates and independents are apolitical. Some are heavily left-leaning, but don't want to be labeled a liberal. Some are left on every single issue, but they also like guns, so they call themselves moderates. Some voted for a Republican in 1992, have voted Democrat ever since, but still consider themselves independent. Some are hardcore right-wing, but think of themselves as free thinkers, so they pretend they are independents. If I had to use one description to break down moderates and independents, I'd say that most of them are truly confused. Remarkable Doubt 8765 says, I'm also very curious to know if those who are opposed to the brewing theocracy and the US, what is your hope? How are you able to sleep at night with this intense theocratic revolution currently mushrooming there? Trump, anti-LGBT, birth choice limitations, embryos as humans now in Alabama, a House Speaker brazenly wanting state/religion separation to end, evangelicals mania, etc. It's not normal. Thigoats Bidaviolin says, my wife and I are working on our out plan. We don't like where any of this is going. We spend plenty of nights up late discussing the future for our kids. We have 4 girls and we live in Texas. This is not the life we want for them at all. Nogadatnathan says, I tried watching that show and had to turn it off. It was frightening how close the US is to heading full throttle towards Gillard. As to the other points, I think 2016 really woke a whole lot of people up to the not taking the right wing seriously, which showed in the 2020 election. What people outside of the US don't seem to understand is the election process here. It's really stupid. When the elections were set up, it was done so that the rural states had just as much power as the more urban states. Thus the Electoral College in the Senate. When the state of Wyoming, smaller population than Washington DC, has the same political power in the Senate as California, larger population than entire countries at 39 mil, you have an imbalance. States like Iowa and North Carolina can swing presidential elections due to the Electoral College. The last Republican to win the popular vote was 20 years ago for Iowa. And with gerrymandering in a lot of states, it makes it even harder. Beloved Foe says, I also think a big problem is the left's obsession with taking the high road while being overly tolerant of the intolerant out of fear of being called something. Fear to enact an exec order or bulldozer a bill through thinking it looks too draconian. r/atheism. Long Jumping Prune 852 says, I was having lunch with someone I'm trying to be friends with. She's really religious, not at all scripture informed. She started on a religious diatribe, and my mouth said, without my brain's permission, don't preach at me. She apologized and said she was just repeating what she had said to her other friend. She dropped it, and most of the religious talk afterwards. She knows I'm atheist. I'm actually pretty proud of me. Our dogs are friends is how we got to be friends. 12, 22, 23 says, I hope she treats her dog well. Christians aren't typically known for their empathy for animals. Mara Godfrey says, all people. 12:22:23 says, they see some people as being more equal than others. NATO84 says, well done with setting a boundary. Sassachubzilla says, she apologized and stopped? Good on you for reminding her outright. I've never met one who didn't stop, or if they did in the moment, they found a way to wiggle it into conversations here and there with a sly look. Edit. Now that I think of it like that, they are very much like people who hit on you grossly, act like they accept the rebuff, and then keep finding a way to allude to it in every interaction and attempt to make you feel guilty for saying no. Wickebritton says, I have a few friends who are devout members of the flock. They know I'm atheist. This isn't a problem. I know they pray for me because they genuinely believe it will help, and they know I'm never going to get down on my knees to worship a being that their books say committed global genocide rather than just punish the people who were doing wrong. Sky says, you know half the reason these people feel empowered us, because we give out validity. If we all did this, then I'm sure we would be less accosted by them. Whiskey Bridge says, I did something similar once. A friend said she knew she deserved hell, and I told her never to say stuff like that in front of me again. Just blurted it out. We are still friends, and last I heard, she had stopped going to church. Cube4ad5 says, our dogs are friends LMAO. The third prophet says, that was nice of her to apologize. Macaperi says, great boundaries, proud of you. Art Guadaluke says, nicely done. I hope you can continue to be friends. I have several good friends who are pretty religious. We know our boundaries and don't cross those lines. The best you can do is be an example of a good atheist so they can't demonize us as easily. Natal Dragon says, she needs to read Timothy 2:12. In all seriousness though, it's great she respected your boundary. Neither Progress 295 says, I don't convert, expect the same. Thenatwakisrold says, don't apologize. r/atheism. Amatraman says, why I left Islam after being a devout Muslim for 38 years. I was born and raised in Bangladesh. Both my parents were Muslims, so I too was brought up as one. Coincidentally, the school I attended was funded by the Saudi government, and studying Arabic was compulsory for the students up to the 8th grade. Moreover, only Muslim students were admitted, and the teachers were selected from active members of a political party called Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami. The party's manifesto calls for establishing Sharia laws in the country. Accordingly, our teachers were more invested in making us proper Muslims than following the national curriculum. So we were punished, often corporally, for our transgressions of Islam, that is, not wearing trousers the correct way, hem of the legs must be above your ankle, mispronouncing Arabic words and phrases, and being late for the midday prayer. Not attending the prayer was not an option, as teachers were sent to all corners of the campus to find each and every one. Students who did not voluntarily go to the school mosque and were found by the teachers were punished in front of the whole congregation. But since it was done to save us from the eternal punishment of God, our parents were quite grateful to the teachers and rather optimistic about our future rewards in the eternal life after death. In the end, the students were grateful too, albeit some more begrudgingly than others. On the other hand, my parents were believers of one of the Sufi traditions of Islam. So at home, God was not about right and wrong, or heaven and hell. Instead, he was all about love. He created us out of love, and he must be discovered through love as well. We need to submit to God just like we surrender ourselves to our lover/beloved. In my 20s and early 30s, 2000, 2015, I defended Islam with my interpretations of the Quran and Hadiths. In hindsight, it was more or less the apologies used by Muslim intellectuals like the author Reza Aslan or TV journalist Mehdi Hasan. ISIS or Al-Qaeda were misguided, but the real reason behind the rise of terrorism was Western interventions, military/economic/cultural. I believed that the moon was split by Muhammad, the final prophet of God. I also believed that the prophet flew on a winged horse to the heavens. At the same time, I knew that the flying horses of Helios were a man-made myth. At 35, to make my apologetics stronger, instead of relying on my interpretations by past Islamic scholars, I decided to study the Quran and Hadiths myself. It took me more than 2 years to complete my study, but I realized that these cannot be defended. At best they are 7th-10th century efforts of building/maintaining a religious community and provide them with explanations for the apparent mysteries of the real world. In 2018 I came across a YouTube channel called The Masked Arab. His superbly explained video series was the final nail on the coffin of my theist life. I realized how Islam promotes and intensifies communal division, misogyny, and bigotry. I also realized how I had played my part in promoting such evils by defending Islam, by providing a friendlier face for the religion, under which it can carry on oppressing the less privileged. So I became an atheist. Around the same time I found the Four Horsemen of Atheism. I particularly fell in love with Christopher Hitchens and his rhetoric. Inspired by him, I still call myself an anti-theist. That's how and why I left Islam at 38. Thank you for reading. Have a good. We Belong Dead says. Thank you for sharing your story. These posts are always welcome. Radishrabin says. Congratulations on escaping the mind prison of Islam. I'm sorry so many years of your childhood education were wasted. Addicted to Mosh 161 says. Good on you. But when it comes to the Middle East, it's not an either or. I would argue that repeatedly bombing whole countries back into the Stone Age does help promoting Stone Age ideologies. D. Freeman Joe says. Welcome to the real world Opus. I wish you all the best in the life. Lurker at large 234 says. It's amazing how fanatically controlling the indoctrination of children can be by religious zealots. Most just blindly buy in, without studying as you did. After comparing religions I found big time problems. It's those ancient beliefs. Raping daughters, killing non-believers, slavery, marrying children, etc. Time to enter year 2000/2024 and indoctrinate love. Character male 5606 says. Hello fellow Bangladeshi. It's no secret that Jamaat's being a terror in the society. I'm happy that the Shabaji incident happened. That toned down the Shabaz's hostility towards atheists. Though it's not safe to emerge as an atheist here. People here are simply rude to non-religious people. You can join the Checular subreddit if you haven't yet. I'm agnostic BTW, but I like to read the posts here. Van 3000 says. Thanks for sharing your journey. I've come to understand that we were all groomed from infancy to believe that our religions were the absolute truth, and it was unnatural to think otherwise. The fact is it's a hard thing mentally to shake and took me many years of back and forth. I'm ex-Hindu now and really happy with the mental and ethical/moral clarity I have. And I will never place the same burden on my kids, such that their sense of self-worth, mental well-being or personal safety may be compromised by some pedo or misogynist hiding behind the cloth. I've also come to understand that the world is not divided up into good atheists and bad theists, or good Muslims and bad Christians, or good Hindus and bad Jews, etc etc. The old adage of don't judge a book by its cover is a good moral. Thick Preparation 926 says. I'm so happy for you, congratulations. Rouston 1966 says. What a well written experience and story. Very moving, thank you for sharing. Rockman61 says, how did you survive becoming apostate? Isn't that a serious or capital crime, secularly, and likely to get you killed extrajudiciously regardless in Bangladesh? That's all for this video, thank you for watching, please subscribe.